All right, Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right, sir. Wow, you've had quite the career. Being a movie producer, let's talk about this. Some people might think being a movie producer, you're taking care of the finances of the film or you're like trying to massage actor egos. What in fact happens as a movie producer?
So you have to be the force behind 500 to 1,000 people, and you have to marshal them all into one creative vision. And you have to be the strength wherever there's a weakness. So there's an old adage that the movie producer is the first one there when the project starts. I have an idea. Let's make a movie about a dog and a cat, and the last one to leave because 20 years later, when there's some issue with the movie, it's still the producer. And in a sense, it's easier to explain it as a real estate developer. In the beginning, it's the same thing. A real estate developer looks at land, says, let's build a shopping mall there, and we'll get Bloomingdale's in, and we'll put in a theater, and he does all that stuff, and then they build it. The difference, and that's what a producer does. Let's make a movie about X, Y, and Z. But the difference is once that shopping mall starts, it's going to look exactly like what the architect drew. The architect isn't going to say, you know what, halfway through, I feel like putting on another story. Let's put in a slide pool. But in movies, there's an execution issue because it's hard to say exactly what it's going to look like. And so the execution of the movie is where it diverges from being anything else in the world because it's not exactly clear. And as a producer, you have to say, well, this is the vision, and this you have to try and marshal everyone to stick to that vision as best as you can. And it's
Larry,
sometimes it's
how
talking
do
to
you,
actors. Is what
but how do you do that, Larry? You're like 1,000 people trying to get them all on the same page. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, hopefully you have a very strong, focused idea. I mean, like when we start a movie, I ask the other, a few key people in the movie, me, the director, a few other people, just to sign a very not legally signed, but a very small paragraph that said, "Here's the movie we're making in one or two sentences." And so the way you do that is if you are focused on what you want, when you have a decision, should it be right or left? Because you've already decided we're making a movie about chocolate and the chocolate store is on the right, that's where you go. So you try and I do it by trying to make the driving force, the creative essence behind the movie really, 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 really specific. And I keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. A lot of my job is calling people every day and telling them the same thing I told them yesterday to make sure they do it today. So that's what you have to do. But you know what? It's a blast.
It sounds like, but I just had the thought. Like I know you've worked with James Cameron, and I just having the thought of you getting into James's ear about like trying to keep him on track. Was that the case at the time, like for like True
No, no, no,
Lies,
no,
or no?
no. Because the producers again is wherever that needs help. A director like Jim doesn't need anyone to keep him on track.
I figured,
And
yeah.
he knows exactly what to do. And so that's a different level of issues a producer does on a movie like that. Let's say you have a younger or a less, frankly, talented or less experienced director. Well, they might need a bit more help on track. You never know what's going to come up. I mean, theoretically, we always say as a producer, once the movie starts, we should be able to go to the beach. Everything is laid out. It's all set. It should be fine. It never works that way. But you never know what it is. But when you have a great director like Jim, you don't. It's a whole different. Being a producer, is a whole different set. You just make sure that he has what he wants and he needs the next day, and because he knows what he wants. It's just you got to get it. And so they're all. That's why the things that's so interesting about the job is that it's different every time. Every movie I've been involved in over 200 movies, and they're all different.
Two, 200 movies. My God, man, that's
I was a long
incredible.
time I started my career. I was a head of a studio called Vestron, an independent studio that made Dirty Dancing and Platoon and stuff. And so we had a huge volume of films, and so I didn't hand produce all those movies, but I oversaw them as a studio head.
You just rattled off some iconic movie names right there, Larry.
Yeah.
So, okay, so obviously it sounds like a blast. I know the job's not as easy as what you're saying, but like, how did you get into film in the first place? So, what was that route like?
So here's the story. I wanted to be a movie producer since I was a little kid. And I got very, very lucky. And out of grad school, I got a great job as head of production and acquisitions and co-productions for a new company called Vestron. And Vestron was an independent film studio riding on the wave of home video. This was in the mid to late 80s. And Home video was a content gold rush, as we call it. There was all these stores were built, they needed movies. Just like now, when streaming was invented and they needed movies, another content gold rush. And so my job was to make 80 movies a year, 80, which in most studios today make 12 or 15.
Wow.
And my instructions were don't lose money. And so we made low budget action movies and rom-coms and horror movies and things like that, all with a little bit of cast in it and all with a high concept, and we were doing great. And then I got a script for a movie called Platoon. And Platoon was not this kind of movie. If you're not familiar with it, it's a movie Oliver Stone wrote and directed about the Vietnam War. And the tagline is the first casualty of war is innocence. It's about the effect the war had on the kids who went there more psychologically even than physically. And I wanted to make it. But my boss said, well, you're crazy. This is what we do. I mean, no one famous is in it. They all became famous, but they weren't famous then. And it's not a high concept movie and it's not a popcorn, we say a commercial movie. But I just had an instinct and I fought for it. And he said, listen, you're the head of production now. You can do whatever you want. But if it fails, you're fired. What do you want to do? So I had the best job in the world, but I thought I didn't get into the movie business to play it safe. And so I greenlit Platoon. And when I first saw the movie, I'm the only person to giggle this way through the screening of Platoon, not because it was bad, because it was so good. I was like, oh, I'm not getting fired. I'm not getting fired. And it was so good. In fact, it won Best Picture at the Academy Awards that year. A few months later, I ran into the director, Oliver, at a bar one night in New York, and he bought me a drink and he said, you know, kid, I always liked you. You have a touch of the madness. And I thought, touch of the madness, a little bit mad, a little bit crazy. Am I crazy? Is he calling me crazy? And then I stopped and I realized, well, my boss had a touch of the madness to give a 25-year-old kid who has no experience the responsibility of running an entire film slate. Oliver had a touch of the madness by insisting on making a Vietnam movie the way no one had ever done before. And I had a touch of the madness by betting the best job in the world on it as a newcomer to Hollywood. And then it occurred to me that that phrase, that point, a touch of the madness, that's what you need. You need it in Hollywood. You need it anywhere innovation is important because the current of the river of life will always pull you towards the middle. Always, always, always trying to get you to compromise. And the best way to swim against it is with a touch of the madness. Because if you do that and you embrace your crazy side, and then you can be innovative. And that became the touchstone for my life, for my career. My hat says, I recently wrote a book, which you can get where books are sold, called A Touch of the Madness. And that became my whole defining life and still is for the movie business. I look for scripts, I look for actors, I look for ideas that have a touch of the madness. If I don't think it's a little crazy, I don't do it.
Larry, man, that's incredible. All right, so you're telling me 25-year-old Larry greenlit that iconic film that won Academy Awards and all that sort of thing. That does not happen in today's movie business, I don't think, right?
No, but my boss at the time, Austin, was an incredibly great guy and disruptive entrepreneur.
Mm.
And he had an incredible instinct for hiring, you know, in those days, younger people like me and giving them shots. And he could really spot people who had fire in their belly. I would have done the job for free. I mean, I just couldn't believe I was getting to do this. And he built an empire on it. And so, no, I don't think you'd find anyone with Austin's guts in the business today. It's gotten much more corporate.
Right. So let's talk about your gut feel for Platoon. So what is it? What was it about that project that really told you, okay, you know what? It's worth the risk.
We had co-financed another movies of Oliver. He was a newer director in those days called Salvador, which didn't make a lot of money, but I thought it was a great movie. So I thought he was a great director. And I just thought it was time. There hadn't really been a movie that looked at the Vietnam War the way he did. There hadn't been that many movies about the Vietnam War. And I just had a feeling. I wish I could tell you more. I just had a gut feeling that this movie, with him directing it, was going to be something special. And I want to be clear. I was the studio head that greenlit the movie and stuff. But I mean, we had a phenomenal producer, Arnold Copelston. I mean, Oliver assembled a great team. But by no means was it just me. I was just the one who had the access to the financing and distribution and decided to bet on it. And why did I bet on it? Because I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's the same way I buy art. It's the same way I hire actors. It's that feeling. People often, when I speak about A Touch of the Madness, they often come up to me and say, well, I have this idea. I want to start an ice cream shop, but I don't think I can do it. It's that idea, that crazy one that you say, well, it's great, but my business partners, my spouse, my kids, my parents, they'll kill me if I do it. That's the one. Do it because you can't get it out of your head, and there's a reason for it. and you just got to listen to it. And I couldn't get Platoon out of my head. And I wish I could give you a bigger analysis of it that was so brilliant. I just had a gut feeling.
Got it. So let's talk about that gut feeling again, but as a producer, like where does that come into play? Does like say a writer comes up to you, I don't know if this has happened to you. A writer comes up to you, I have this idea for a film. Has that happened to you? And then you're like, you know what? There's something there. All right. Is
Yeah,
it yeah? Okay.
happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again, there's then an execution of the whole thing. You then have to get
Right.
it made and written and cast and get the
Yeah.
right director, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. But yeah, I'm always based on the idea. If it's a great idea,
Yeah.
it'll eventually work. And I always hang on to that idea. And sometimes ideas get made in, you know, 2 weeks. I mean, when we started Lightstorm Entertainment, we got a green light on Terminator 2 like 2 weeks later. Sometimes it takes 10 years.
Right.
It, but if you have a great idea, that's the touchstone you can hold on to. That's what I always think. And you have to understand your idea. Like, what's the essence of the idea? I
Yeah.
made and I still make Mortal Kombat movies,
Yeah.
which are 30th anniversary this year. Which like,
Wow.
so when we made Mortal Kombat, no one had ever made a hit movie from a video game before, and everyone told me I was crazy and my career was going to be over. I get that a lot, and so I thought the secret is I thought I'm not really making a movie from a video game. I'm making a movie from a story the video game is based on. And the video game actually wasn't really based on a story. So we invented one. And then the top of the pyramid was kind of the essence of that brand, which is, I think, empowerment. And so once you look at it, this isn't a video game. This is a story, a concept, which has already spun a video game. And then we'll go back to the top and we'll go down to a movie and then we'll do a TV series. And it's still working because the idea is so good. So I always look for a great idea, and I almost never think you can overcome the lack of it. If you don't have a good idea, I mean, it can be done, but it's really tough, and I don't do it.
Right. So tell me, what makes a great story in your opinion?
If I knew the answer to that, we'd be talking from my moon base, in outer space. I always think that it's got to be something that that grabs you and holds on to you, not only me, but especially the audience. I also think the audience, and they won't let go. And um, and if you can over deliver on it, in other words, here's a great idea, and you
Yeah.
deliver on that, then you give the audience something extra. Then I think you have something. The other thing too that is hard is it's coming up with a great idea isn't the hardest thing. The hardest thing is never letting go of it when everyone tells you over the days, the weeks, the years, the decades. Not when we did Dirty Dancing, it was a movie that another studio had started and stopped, and we picked it up to do it, and it wasn't going well. And Austin had managed to lure into the company a guy named Jimmy Einer, who was a legend in music and producing and everything, and to come and oversee Dirty Dancing. And then Jimmy brought in a music supervisor named Michael Lloyd, who are still my partners to this day. And the song "Time of My Life" had already been recorded, but it had been recorded as a kind of high falsetto disco song. And Jimmy and Michael said, no, 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 no. And they re-recorded it with Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers
Yeah.
as the song you hear today. And they sent it to everybody, the director, the radio station, the record company, and so forth, and no one liked it. Everyone said, their version. Everyone said, no, 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 you can change it as much, and here are notes. Please do the notes. Please do the notes. And they were incredibly gracious. And so Jimmy said, sure, no problem. We'll change it. We'll do that. Just give us a few weeks. We'll do your changes. 3 weeks later, they sent out version 2, and they said, we send this version to some radio stations, which in those days were important for promoting an album. And they said, how do you like it? And everyone came back and said, oh, it's so much better. Thanks for doing the notes. That was so, compromising of you. And that was so nice. Thank you. Yeah, we love it. Okay, so the question is, what brilliant creative thing did Jimmy and Michael do between version 1 and version 2? So
Mm.
here's what they changed. Nothing. They didn't change a thing. They changed the label to say, and they sent it to radio stations, which was a huge gamble because that's like the public, and if the radio stations didn't like it, they would have been screwed. They so believed in their idea
Wow.
they went against everyone and they didn't change a thing. That song won the Grammy and the Oscar that year for the best song, and it's still one of the most listened to songs in history because they stuck to their idea. So in hindsight, it sounds easy because
Yeah.
of course it's a great song, but in the time when we were a
Yeah.
little company based in Connecticut and everyone is telling you there's no way and they don't like the song, and Jimmy said, no, 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 he's going to stick to his knitting, and he didn't tell everybody. He just said me too, and they never told anybody unless someone's watching this podcast. They still don't know. But But that's what you got to do. You got to have that touch of the madness. You got to say, I don't care what everybody says, they're
Yeah.
wrong.
So many people, Larry, bow down to that, negative peer pressure. So it's cool to hear, yeah, touch the madness, taking a risk, taking your shot. You got to do it, man. If you believe
Yeah.
it that strongly. I love it. I love it. So, Larry, let's get back to the actual process of getting a movie off the ground. You mentioned it a little bit. So, how does it work for you? Writer gives producer idea, then launches everything. Like, how does that work? Like, can you take us through
It,
the?
it,
Okay.
every journey from every movie is different. Often we kid around and say that the story behind the making of the movie has more drama than the actual story in the movie.
Yeah.
But we tend, me and my partners in my company, we tend to come up with our own ideas, simply because then we know we love it and we know we'll stick with it for years. And it's not that we don't like ideas from other people; it's just you're then very reactive, and you have to hope someone gives you a good idea. So we tend to create our own ideas,
Mm,
and then usually I write a treatment, and then I have a writing partner named Sean Catherine Derrick, who's a genius, and we write together some of our scripts and other scripts we hire writers to do, or sometimes we just buy a script, but always based on an idea. And then you have to think, how does this movie get made? It's a lot of ways to finance a movie. You can go to a studio and have them finance the whole movie, but then they control the whole movie. It's kind of like moving into your parents' house after school. Good news is there's something in the refrigerator. The bad news is you have no authority over what it is. Or you can make a movie what's called independently, meaning you get different investors from around the world based in different territories. The guy from England invests for the English rights, and the guy from China invests for the Chinese rights. And that's a little more complicated and a little harder to do. But then you have control. That's like moving out of your parents' house after school, where there's nothing in the refrigerator until you put it there, but you can do whatever the hell you want. So it usually is based on that. And then the tastes of the town change. Right now, there's a big push to always have cast, always have cast, always have cast in movies, which
mm,
doesn't necessarily work, but it's what goes on today. There's always something in the business to complicate how movies get made, and people are always worried. Today they're worried about AI, and when we started home video, they were worried about home video, and when pay TV started way before me, they were worried about pay TV, and it is always something like that in the history of the business. And when television came in the I guess 40s or 50s, they were worried, oh my God, it's going to be no more movies. When color came in, it's always every 20 years or 15 years, there's something that everyone says, oh my God, there are going to be no more movies. But
right.
I don't think it's
So you don't think AI is going to be a problem?
no.
Okay.
Listen, what AI might do to the world, I have no idea.
Mhm.
But in the movie business, I think the key phrase to think of is there's a great opportunity before the machines take over. So let's say the machines are going to take over the world. I hope not. Terminator 2 is about.
Right.
But before that, there's a great opportunity. Simply because one of the problems with movies today is they simply cost too much money. I mean, as a producer, I shouldn't say that, but it's true. And,
Right.
and so AI will help those movies cost less money. It will help automate a process that hasn't been automated before. Now, everyone is worried there's going to be the computer will write the script, should act. I don't think so. But who knows? But it doesn't matter what I think or what you think, because it's a wave and it's coming. So we better learn how to surf. See, we can talk about it all day long. You can't stop the onslaught of a new technology. When we did morphing in T2, everyone said, "Oh, digital effects, that's it." The business, well, it wasn't it. It only did help movies. As I said, when people thought home video would eat into the box office, it increased the box office. In
Mm,
the short run, it will do for movies what the assembly line did for Ford Motors and cars. It'll make it more efficient and cheaper. And people say, well, then we'll lose jobs. I think in the long run, more movies will get made and will increase jobs. So you have to embrace it. So I think AI for the movie business is fantastic.
Larry, this is the attitude I like hearing because on TikTok, I'm watching all these like different producers and people like in the industry just voicing their concerns, how, yeah, it's going to take my livelihood and all that sort of thing. But there's such an opportunity there, which you're detailing right now, that is there. It's interesting. Like, I get it. People are feeling scarce. There's desperation. They're worried about paying the bills. But if you hang on a little bit, there is an opportunity. If you decide to use the tool to your advantage, you can increase your value in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta understand. I mean, everyone has been through this, but for the movie business especially, the last few years we've had a pandemic, We've had a politically correct movement, which made people scared to death to do anything creative, which was terrible for the business.
Yeah.
Then we had a year of writer and actor strikes. Then we had these horrible fires in LA. It's just been like 4 years of stuff, which of course weighs on people. But
Mm,
I think what you're seeing is the spillover of that feeling into AI. It's just AI happened to knock on the door at the wrong time, you
mm,
know. But you have to be positive about all these things. You have to, I just, you have to embrace the madness. You have to say, well, what are the opportunities of AI? And they're great. For example, my company is very, very interested in making movies all over the world that appeal to a global audience. Because we say global audience, but most of our movies don't go to at least half the world, and we're trying to change that.
okay.
One of the things people say is, well, but no one likes to watch a dub movie, where the lips are out of sync. There's an AI tool coming, which is about 80% there, and it'll be there soon, where if we dub you into French, the AI computer can make your lips move with
Wow.
the French dialogue. So it never looks like you're saying you're speaking out of sync. That will change the business. That alone will increase revenue an enormous amount of money. Just that. Because people always say here, oh, I'm not going to, especially kids, I'm not going to go see a dumb movie. I'm not going to see a subtitle movie. Well, then never, soon that concept will be gone. There never will be a dubbed movie. No kid will understand what that even means one day. So these are great opportunities.
Mm.
I mean, I spent all day long telling people this because you're right. There is a pervasive blahness going on here, but I think it's just a result of the last few years.
So what's the name of the software that messes with your lips? Do you know?
It's AI software, but there's a lot of different companies doing it. And it's
Got
just
it.
when you like and who will get there first. But I think they'll all get there.
Gotcha. So, okay. So you've had the great opportunity of being on a movie set like in the 80s, 90s. Compare those eras to like today. Any differences that you've seen?
I think the basic movie set hasn't changed in feeling and direction, I think, since the 20s. It's a kind of camaraderie. It's like summer camp, but you got a job to do, and there's the pressure, but it's exciting, and you kind of bond with the crew, and they're all going to be your best friends. But sometimes they are. Like we have a group of people from Mortal Kombat who are still great friends after all this time. So
Right.
sometimes it is, sometimes and sometimes it isn't. The difference is the willingness to take risks. And
Yes.
there's more willingness to take a risk in those days than there is today. So in other words, if someone lives a line, when we did the first Mortal Kombat movie, Christopher Lambert, who was an action star movies like Highlander and Tarzan, what played Lord Raiden. And there was a line in the movie that said he was talking to the fighters, and before the tournament of Mortal Kombat started, the character Raiden says, "The fate of the world depends on you." But as he said the line, it just wasn't working. It was too corny, and we didn't know what to do. And Chris is really a funny guy, so he made a joke out of it. He said, "The fate of the world depends on you." I said, "No way." Just kidding. Sorry. And I mean, he just like pretended like there was no way these misfits are going to do it. He
Sure.
just did it as a joke, but the crew cracked up, and we kept it in the movie.
Yeah.
And because everyone was having a great time in Thailand shooting the movie, and everyone felt safe and secure to do that and take risks,
Mm.
and that's what we try to foster. So it is creative risk taking, which has gone away, which is why I wrote A Touch of the Madness, because I think people are just too scared to take a shot, and so you might offend somebody. So someone's grandmother might not like it, or grandchild, or see someone will call me and say, "Oh, you don't like grandmothers." This is this is this is what's different, and this is what hopefully will change back.
Larry, like, listen, I'm a big fan of IPs. I love the Star Wars, love the Marvel, but it's gotten to a point, you're right, in terms of taking risks. People like studios, they don't want to take that leap and maybe invest in the next Star Wars, the different, like the innovative film that's going to capture the hearts of the world because they know the trusted IP will always deliver for stockholders, the bottom line, that sort of thing. That's why people complain nowadays about Hollywood movies, how it's all sequels, prequels, IP, video game. I don't know. It's like, are we ever going to get back to that point where it's original fare, but will be a hit with audiences?
Yeah, I think so because what's happened in the last 10 years with let's call it the political correctness movement is not new in the world. The exact same thing happened in the 50s and early 60s. In the Italian Renaissance in 1500, when Botticelli painted Venus sort of nude on a big shell, 25 years later, those paintings had to be covered up because they were deemed too risque.
Mm.
And the guy who spearheaded that movement, I forget his name, was eventually hanged. So eventually it turned back. So the notion of the wave turning into some ultra conservative time, it happens throughout history. And you can track what happened in the 50s and 60s to what's happening now, and it's almost exactly the same. And I think we're coming out of it, and it doesn't end in a day, but it is getting the ice is cracking. And so yeah, I do believe that. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with IP and sequels as long as they're creative. But if you're afraid to say something, you can't censor art and get good art. You just can't. It won't be good. And that's what people realize. Like, oh, it's the same thing because no one's taking a risk. I mean, Platoon was a creative risk. Mortal Kombat was a creative risk. Terminator was a creative risk. And not just my movies. I mean, there's a million of them that were great creative risks. And that's what the audience wants. The audience wants the new and the different. A studio financier wants the tried and the true. Movies are not like other things. If you run a consumer products company like Coca-Cola and you test Coca-Cola in 6 markets and people love it, you're pretty sure they're going to love it in all the markets and you can sell it for 200 years. Movies aren't the same because the audience doesn't want, when you get a Coca-Cola, you're not hoping every week, boy, this tastes different this week. No, you want your Coca-Cola. Movies, you want something different. The
Mm.
audience, you got to think of the audience. We work for the audience. The audience wants the new and the different. The financiers want the tried and the true. So we have to, again, battle against that current of the river, which is going to pull you towards the middle. And we have to use a touch of the madness to try different and crazy things. That will be hits.
Got it. Got it. It's interesting. You were talking about thinking about the audience. I remember seeing an interview with Tom Hanks, and he was talking about when he was on the set of a movie that, say, there was a line, said that he was like, "No, I don't think the average Joe. Like you're talking to down to the average Joe there. Don't want to do that." So it sounds like to me there was actually, when you guys are on set, you're very mindful of like how things are coming across. That you're putting yourselves in the audience's seat, right? Is that close that when you're filming that you're taking them into consideration, making sure, yeah, that you're right. That line sounds corny. Joe Blow is not going to dig that line. Is that a consideration or
Well, you should. I mean, again, I learned that lesson also in Dirty Dancing. This was one of the first movies I was ever involved in with Jimmy Einer, the legendary guy who's now the partner in my company.
hmm,
And in the very beginning of making making a Dirty Dancing, when we were talking about casting, and someone mentioned Jennifer Grey, Jimmy, I said Jennifer's great. She's a terrific actress, but there are other actresses who are more famous, who are more glamorous. Let's get one of those. I mean, and I said she's in Every Woman. And he said, that's the point, you idiot, because every woman in the world will identify with her and think if she can get Patrick Swayze, I can get a guy like Patrick Swayze. If we cast the most glamorous, beautiful girl in the world, every girl will say, well, I'm not, that's not me. And that was my first lesson and the greatest one still that it's the audience. We work for the audience. I have a little speech before I start every movie to the crew saying, you don't work for me, you don't work for the studio, you don't work for the director, you work for the audience. So I hope people on my sets do what you just said, which is say, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't look right. Is the audience going to buy that? Yeah, we work for the audience. That's our, we're just custodians of the audience. And so I hope that people say that. And I think on good collaborative movie sets, they do. And Tom Hanks is a great actor and a great producer. And so I'm sure he has a feel for what's right and what doesn't sound right. And that's exactly what you want. Because you never know. At some points, you just never know what line's going to hit and what isn't.
yeah, for sure. The lines that become iconic. It's just amazing hearing you, Larry, just talking about all these films that millions and billions of people have loved and adored, and you've had some sort of connection to those. Like, how does it feel to have that kind of connection to like film history?
It feels great. I'm proud of it. I'm grateful for it. And all it does is make me want to go out and make more.
For sure.
So we have like 20 movies in development. Um, we had to pause a little bit during the pandemic, but now we're moving ahead full steam. We've got some great ones, and people always ask me what my favorite movie of mine is,
Yeah.
and I always say my next one. And I'm not being cute. You have to think that way, and I'm so
Right.
grateful and proud of my old movies, but or
Sure.
my past movies, but I'm focused on the next one.
Absolutely. Can you tell, like, or at least share, like, some, like, I don't know, funny stories or cool moments, whether it was like on the set of True Lies, working with Jim Cameron, or like Dirty Dancing, T2, like, what were some memories, especially working with Cameron? Like, he's such a focused guy. What was that like?
It was great because he's an incredible filmmaker. And so to just be at all part of that process and watch and see and learn and watch it come together, it was fantastic. But when we were making that movie, Jim had already proved theoretically that morphing would work on a past movie called The Abyss, but it never in this level before. So we didn't really know for certain that it was going to work till halfway through the movie. So talk about taking a risk. I mean, it was one of the most expensive movies ever made, and we were hoping that these effects would work. I mean, again, we had a very great hypothesis that it would, but that's the kind of risk taking I was talking about. You have a good idea, you think you can pull it off, you're pretty sure you're willing to bet on it, and you do anything you can to pull it off. And then when the audience sees, the T1000, the T1000 for the first time, it's something they've never seen before. That's exactly what you want to do. And if you're on a movie set, and you're doing that and you're proving that, it's just incredibly exciting. And that's all you really think about. There are funny, great moments on movies like the one I told you about with Chris,
Yeah.
um, in the line because the crew is great. But it is also, I mean, I'm saying this gratefully. It's a lot of work. I mean, so you're not really just sitting around telling a story. Uh, you are always making your day and trying to get things going, but you have a great, like a great fun group of people, and you
For
try and
sure.
make it good for the crew and good for everybody, just to have a blast. I like movie sets that are fun and people are relaxed, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Right. So the average day in the life of you, Larry, as a movie producer, like on set, like, is there a lot of running around? What does that look like?
Well, so the average life of a movie producer is you have movies that you're trying to get made. You have movies that are being made. You have movies that were made. Now you want to make sure the distribution is going well on them. And they're all your projects, and you work on all of them to just try and advance them down the line. It's
Mm.
kind of like, that game at old carnivals where everyone has a squirt gun and that you're trying to you send the horse down a little bit. You're always trying to do that. And again, you're always listening to, well, what's going on. We had a movie not too long ago during the pandemic. I can't say which one, but the studio called us a week before we were starting and said, "Good news is during the pandemic, the movie's still greenlit." I said, "Oh, great." And he said, "The bad news is you have to make it for half the budget. You can't change a thing creatively." I said,
Oh,
"What?"
shoot.
And we had a week to figure out how to do that, and we did.
Oh,
And that's what you got to do. And it's always something comes up and you think you got it and you think it's great and you think it's, we I can't say this is either, but we had a very famous actress in a movie once who she'd been known for some sexy roles, and this was a not a sexy role. And she was great. And she said, I don't want to at all play this role sexy. We said, great. And there was one scene in the movie where she was at a nice dinner. Mostly it was an action movie, and we got a very conservative, high-collared dress. And she took one look at it and said, "That's not sexy enough. I can't wear that."
oh my
Because
gosh.
the thing clicks in that no, no, I want to look good. So and so then that next hour is spent working out that. It's always whatever. But again, it's the idea. It's what's the great idea. And I
Right.
always say, whatever their business is, what great idea do you have? What's the great idea that you're not doing that you should be doing? That's the touch of the madness. And that's what it is. And so I always look back and think, okay, what's the idea? What does the audience care? You can't say to the audience, listen, sorry about the dress, but she didn't want to wear it. You can't put up a little card. Once your movie is done and out into the world, it's not your movie anymore. It's the
Yeah.
audience's movie. And you
Yeah.
can't explain what happened in a bar. I always say to people in movie sets when we're having an argument, do you want to be right in the room or right on the screen? You want to be talking about this for the next 20 years in bars, telling anyone who will listen, well, I said that once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And how it got done doesn't matter. So that's your life. Your life is every way, shape, or form trying to do this. I have a movie that's that's shooting all over what's called the Silk Road, which is the ancient trade route between China and the West. And it goes through what's called the stands, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, places like that. And one potential financier said to me, because we're shooting in Uzbekistan, said, well, listen, I get somebody, let's just go to Kazakhstan. And I said, it's not the same location just because the word ends in stan. It's a whole different country,
Oh
but you
my.
deal with that kind of stuff a lot. And there's some people who would say, yeah, sure, okay, fine, great. I don't. You've got to be
Right.
in service of that idea. And as long as it's for the idea, it's great. But you can't tell the audience, yeah, sorry, we shot here. It makes no sense. But, Frank gave us 10% of the money. He wanted to shoot here because he's got a house.
Yep.
Can't do that. You know,
Got it.
you got to demand excellence. You know, nothing great happens without taking a chance. And so you got to think that all the time, and you got to take a chance.
Completely agree. Wow. So, Larry, let's talk about like the skills needed for being a producer. What are the top three? Like, say there's a listener viewer checking out this interview. They want to get into this biz. What skills do they need?
Persistence, persistence, and persistence. You hope they're creative. You hope they have a good gut for the audience.
Hmm.
Hope they know, all the technical aspects of filmmaking. But I can tell when I meet somebody, whether it's an aspiring producer, a director, a writer, an actor, I can tell in 30 seconds if they're talented. I've been doing it a long time. I can always tell. I can find people, but I can't tell in without time if they have the persistence and the fire in their belly to go the distance. We do a lot of martial arts stuff because of Mortal Kombat, and
Hmm.
martial arts trainers will always say, I'd rather have a new kid I'm training to be a real fighter
Hmm.
who's all heart and no talent versus all talent and no heart. By
Hmm.
heart, they mean, spirit. And that's it. That's the one thing. So we that's what we can't tell. And I would say the people who come to me say, I want to be in the movie business, I want to do X. Of the ones who got to LA, of the ones who are here, of the ones who get to a person like me, of the ones who are talented enough to have talent, the amount of the people who then do have that persistence is really low. Most don't. And whether they don't because they don't really want to do it, they don't care. I don't know. But that it's always kind of a mystery to us because too bad, she was so talented, she was so this, she was but it's too bad. So really, it's just incredible persistence. It took Spider-Man 25 years to get to the screen. But
Wow.
at the end of the day, no one talks about that. It's just Spider-Man now.
Yeah.
And it's great. And the movies are fantastic.
Hmm.
25 years. So, someone was working on that movie for 25 years. A lot of people were actually. But that's what you have to do. It's persistence. And without it, there's just no way.
Got it.
Talent's battle. And it's a much more prevalent skill than persistence.
Absolutely. Larry, where do we find producing jobs? Do we check on the internet? What do we do?
you know, there is no, hey, here's a producing job where you can be paid, have a nice office, do all these things, and take risks, and you got to figure out what you want to produce. You got to figure out your way in. My way in, by finding an incredibly entrepreneurial company making, riding the home video wave, doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
And so there are people who found their way in with streamers, but streamers haven't been taking the creative chances it's always different. On the other hand, if you look today at social media, which everyone derides, there's an aspect of it which is fantastic because you can be a kid at home anywhere and you can start doing TikTok videos and build you have a shot at building a following and becoming a storyteller or a presenter. So there's always something different. And 10 years from now, there'll be a different way in. But you got to find your own.
Got it.
I wish
And you
I
need,
wish it was an easier route,
yeah,
but it is.
it's all good. And you need a touch of madness, right, Larry?
It's madness. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's talk
You
about
need
the book. Let's talk about the book.
So the book is largely everything I've been talking about. It just is a very short book, which uses the kind of stories I've been telling, just to inspire people, hopefully, to embrace their crazy side, to be more creative. That's it. And we just want people to read the book, and most people do and say, I was inspired by this. It was fun. That's all I want. And I did it because during the pandemic, I just couldn't believe the amount of people who would no longer take a creative chance. And it wasn't just my business. And my brother, who's very involved in marketing and writing and stuff, he said, well, write a book. And I said, hey, I guess I have time now and stop, bitching about it to my friends isn't going to help. So I did. And I wrote, and the book is, which we have a great publisher and it's on Amazon and on Audible. And, I had to audition to read my own book on Audible. And it'd be funny if someone else was a better me and got the role of me over me. And I thought, so fortunately, I booked me. But yeah, and that's it. And I speak about it all over the world now, and I like it because hopefully, maybe, just maybe, I can convince people to really take that wild, creative idea and go for it. Embrace the madness is what I want people to do.
Well, you know what? Good for you for just distilling all of your experiences and your wisdom from your career and putting it in that book. I think it's an important message. I don't think people take enough risk, in their lives, and they're doomed to have lives where their talents are locked up and they never use them. So good on you, man. And writing a book is hard too. It's not an easy feat. Voicing a book is also not an easy feat. So well done,
Actually,
sir.
thank you very much. It's actually a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it.
Well, listen, this has been great, Larry. So everybody check out his book. Definitely go to the places he mentioned. Larry, do you have a website as well?
So there's a touchofthemadness.com and there's larrykasanoff.com, and on all social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm at Larry Kasanoff.
Fantastic. Larry, this has been awesome, man. It's been like a film history lesson here. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right, that was a fun conversation with Larry. I'm a movie guy, so it's always cool to hear about what film people do, what their roles are, and being a movie producer, it's not an easy task. So it was just interesting hearing Larry's point of view, also his work on movies like True Lies and working with directors like James Cameron. Come on, man. That's awesome stuff. So Larry, thanks again. Totally appreciate it. All right, that's it for this interview. Please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast for more great content. Until next time, take care and have a good one.